What if I told you that for many South Africans, Nelson Mandela never became president because in their minds, he died in prison?
Fact. The Mandela that went to jail and the guy who came out are totally different. The guy who came out was sourced all over Africa after Mandela died being interrogated.
This sounds unbelievable, but this belief has survived for decades, not because people are ignorant, but because history left many wounds unanswered. For years, a quiet but persistent conspiracy theory has circulated in South Africa that Nelson Mandela died in prison in 1985 at the age of 67, and that the man who walked out of 𝒃𝒓𝒂𝒏𝒅 prison in 1990 was an imposter. The theory sounds extreme.
Eyakuthi ke kubo sifuna imali eyaneleyo yokubana silungise zonke ezi zinto kuba sifuna abantwana bethu baye esikolweni bafunde mahala. Umzala ngamnye xa ngamsanga umntana wakhe esikolweni afakwe ityala.
The Nelson Mandela Foundation has repeatedly debunked it, releasing archival footage, documents, and recordings including videos of Nelson Mandela speaking isiXhosa, a language conspiracy theorists claimed he could no longer speak. Logically, that should have ended the story, but it didn't.
Uba ndibe ndisaphila namhlanje
kuyafuneka into yobana sibambane siqine njengoko kwakunjalo.
And today, instead of trying to mock or debunk this theory again, I want us to ask a deeper question. Why do some South Africans believe Mandela died in prison in the first place? To understand that, we must understand apartheid, not as a chapter in a textbook, but as a lived aura. Apartheid was not just laws and passports. It was dogs unleashed on protesters, tear gas fired into townships, political assassinations, disappearances, prisons designed to break the human spirit. For many South Africans, especially those who lived through the worst years of repression, it feels entirely plausible that Nelson Mandela, public enemy number one, could have been killed quietly in prison. The apartheid state had both the motive and the machinery to do it. So when Mandela emerged decades later, calm, forgiving, and focused on reconciliation, some people struggled to reconcile that image with the brutal revolutionary they expected to see.
Why no bitterness? Why no hate after all those years?
If you spend 27 years in jail, where you waste your life, the flower of your life, you have no time to be negative, to be pessimistic. You select a target which you feel will enrich you if you strive to attain that target. Never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another.
Jail unjustly for 27 years. He could have used his authority, his power for retribution. He chose reconciliation.
Mandela is a special person, very, very sympathetic to other people, especially those who are struggling.
He is par excellence a peacemaker. I have the greatest of respect for Nelson Mandela.
Mandela means higher-mindedness, aspiring towards a society that really is better for everybody.
He gave me dignity.
Mandela, for me, is a legacy.
That psychological gap became fertile ground for conspiracy. According to the theory, after Mandela supposedly died in 1985, the apartheid government replaced him with an imposter named Gibson Makanda. This man conspiracists claim resembled Mandela closely and was taken to Pretoria or Portsmouth prison, where doctors from London allegedly performed minor surgery on him.
Looking for someone who had a similar structure/physique. Then some plastic surgery was performed. The 10 years of so-called solitary confinement that took place was just 10 years to train and prepare the imposter.
From there, he was trained to walk, speak, and behave like Mandela. Some even argue that this deception explains the divorce between Nelson and Winnie Mandela, suggesting she could not recognize the man he had become. Gibson Makanda's alleged biography is deliberately vague. Some say he was born in South Africa. Others claim he may have been Zimbabwean, because the surname Makanda is a Shona word which means peels or skins. Some even allege he was born in the early 1900s, making him far older than Mandela. According to the conspiracy, this imposter went on to negotiate the end of apartheid and became South Africa's first democratic president, not as a radical freedom fighter, but as a controlled figure acceptable to white capital and Western powers. For years, this theory remained. Then in 2019, it resurfaced when people used a facial enhancement app to compare images of young Mandela with his older self, claiming the differences were proof.
13 years ago, in 1986, South Africa was in a state of emergency, and there was a very intense cultural struggle that was being waged. And we were part of that, and this is a song that we wrote for truly one of the greatest South Africans in history, Nelson Mandela, and we'd like to open the show tonight with a tribute to him.
Even music fed the mystery. In 1987, Johnny Clegg released a song with lyrics that loosely translated to "We have not seen him, where is he? Where is he buried?" For some, that line became symbolic fuel.
The song became, "We are the ones who have never seen him. Asimbonanga Mandela. We've never seen Mandela." The lyrics is, "Who has the words to close the distance between you and me?" The words that closed the distance between you and me was that speech that he gave at his treason trial. It was really saying that although we've never seen you, your words that you spoke, those are the ones that will make a bridge for all of us. Because it's that guarantee that everyone wants. No black domination, no white domination, nobody dominating anyone. And that's how the song developed.
The theory also tries to explain why South Africans are encouraged to perform 67 minutes of charity on Mandela Day. Conspiracy believers claim it represents Mandela's age at death, 67, not his years of service. But here is where things get really serious. This conspiracy is not really about Mandela's body. It is about South Africa's unresolved disappointment. Many black South Africans gained political freedom in 1994, but not economic freedom.
Political freedom without economic freedom is meaningless.
Liberation came without land redistribution at scale, without economic justice, without the full realization of the 1955 Freedom Charter that Mandela himself helped draft. So people ask, if this is freedom, what went wrong?
All over Africa, not only in South Africa, all our leaders have been defeated by the white intellectuals. Hands down. Even Mandela. You cannot negotiate for your people and negotiate against your people.
Do you feel like he negotiated against his people?
What do we have as black people? Look at us. Look at us. What do we have? What is this that we have won? The property rights is still with the white people. I sacrificed my family, My parents, I didn't listen to my parents because I wanted the people of South Africa to be literally free.
The conspiracy theory becomes a symbolic answer. The real Mandela never finished the struggle. In reality, the ANC entered power at a moment when global conditions were stacked against radical transformation. The Soviet Union had collapsed. Capitalism was the only dominant system. Institutions like the IMF, World Bank, and the World Trade Organization dictated the rules of engagement. South Africa re-entered the global economy bankrupt, isolated, and desperate for legitimacy.
After my phase of consciousness at university level, I found myself very angry at Nelson Mandela, very angry at ANC leadership, and for many years I called Mandela a sellout, and I felt that himself and the ANC leaders had chosen a bad deal at CODESA so that they could benefit, live well, be comfortable, while the rest of the majority of black people who had been fighting in the struggle would get a really, really bad deal. More in particularly, they couldn't get the land and they couldn't get a genuine piece of the economy. As I'd get older and I'd question things and I'd see how the world works, I'd realize that, Nelson was caught between a rock and a hard place and he had to make some kind of a compromise. Well, he didn't have to. South Africa could have gone to war and a whole lot of people could have died, on both sides of the fight. So the compromise was, let us spare life and let us look at a peaceful resolution into the way forward.
Mandela's decisions were shaped by what was politically possible, not by perfection.
Why did Nelson Mandela sell out the Freedom Chant? When Nelson Mandela returned from prison, he got separated with Winnie Mandela and went to stay in a house of the rich white men. He was looked after by the Oppenheimers. Nelson Mandela used to attend the club meetings of those white men who owned the South African economy at the time.
Do you feel like Mandela betrayed you guys?
If you ask me, I will say yes.
Calling him a sellout assumes he acted alone with unlimited power. He did not. He led a movement constrained by global finance, internal compromises, and inherited economic damage.
It's easy to call us cowards. It's easy to accuse us of selling out. When you don't know, please listen. When you don't know how we got there, you can say those things. They mean nothing, and they change nothing.
Nelson, you're not going to nationalize the assets of the white people. I have worked for my banks, my mines, my businesses, and my farms. You are not going to take it. Stop your violence. Stop your sanction campaign. Stop your nonsense.
And yet, the gap between expectation and reality remains. The gap keeps conspiracy theories alive. If African history, memory, and truth matter to you, wear the message. Visit the Africarized shop for African-inspired apparel that tells our story from our perspective. The link in the description. Join the Africarized membership for exclusive videos, deeper breakdowns, and early access to content you won't see anywhere else. Like this video, subscribe to the Africarized YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page and TikTok to keep these conversations alive. For advertising or to do business with Africarized, email kelvin@africarized.𝒂𝒊𝒔𝒆.net. Mandela did not die in prison, but the promises people attached to liberation did. And until South Africa fully confronts that unfinished journey, the myths will keep speaking where history stayed silent. This is Africarized. I'm 𝒂𝒊𝒔𝒆. We don't worship narratives, we interrogate them. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.